So first of all, thank you so much for sending me your book, Soft Sports, Rotten Sports.
Thank you for reading it and for enjoying it and for inviting me on your live. I'm so excited to be here. I'm really happy to meet with you finally.
Finally,
Yeah.
finally. Okay, so I think people will still be joining the call as we go ahead, but we can just basically get into it. Okay, so I'm going to get into the first question. I have my questions written down, so I'm going to be looking down and looking up.
That's fine.
Okay. So the first thing is, what inspired the name of the book and the collection as a whole? How did the idea come about in you to write this book?
Okay, so I've been writing for a little close to a decade, about 8 years,
Okay.
right? And the first poem I ever wrote, when you read the book, the last poem in the book is called How It All Began, right? And the first line of that poem reads, soft spot, rotten spot. So, a soft spot is when you're fond of someone or something, you have an affectionate kind of relationship with someone or something.
Yeah.
And then a rotten spot to me is, insecurities, your fears, the things that you would usually or typically try to hide from the world, right? So by the time I had the whole collection put together, it was quite clear what the name of the collection was going to be
Mm-hmm.
because I understood that soft spot, rotten spots encapsulated everything, all the poems that were in the book. So from people who you love that you shouldn't have loved, or
Yeah.
things that you're so fond of that you shouldn't really be fond of, your fears, your
Mm-hmm.
insecurities, all those sort of things, they all come to play at different points in different parts of the book. That's the 5 parts,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the name was clear from the start. There was no debate. There was no sort of eureka moment where you
Yeah.
realize, oh, this is what I'm going to name my collection. It was just that. It was right in my face. So yeah.
To put that. So it was just like I'm going to embody the entirety of what it means to have like the soft part of your life and all the hard parts, everything merging into one that makes a person
Yeah.
basically. I love
Yeah.
that. I love that. So what would you say was your favorite part of the writing process? You already had the name in mind of okay, I'm going to name my book Soft Forest Sport. I'm going to try and encapsulate this emotion while writing. What would you say your favorite part throughout the journey was?
Okay, let me just go back. So the name wasn't chosen when I started writing. The name was
Okay.
chosen at the end. So
Okay.
yeah, so it was when I put the collection together that it was just clear from that moment that okay, all the poems that are in this book, that are in this collection, that based on the themes that I had chosen for the collection, it was just clear that okay, this was the title that was going to be given to the book. However, for the second question that you said, what's the most
Your favorite part
particular,
of the writing
yeah,
journey?
process. So it's the ideation process, the point where I have an idea. So sometimes I have an idea and it's not the first line of the poem. It could be some point in the middle. It could be some point at the end, and then I work my way up from there. But that whole ideation process, the whole point where you understand that this is the message that I'm trying to communicate
Yeah.
in writing, because I don't write for people to read, or initially I did not write the poems for people to read. I was writing for myself to enjoy the thoughts that I had in my head, or to just put them down on paper. So
Mm.
it became more clear that this was the point, this was my favorite part of the whole process, the part where you understand that this is what you want to say, and then you begin to write it down.
Mm.
And that was still my favorite part. It's still my entire favorite part. Even when I write, because I still have poems I'm working on now that haven't been
Okay.
finished.
Mm.
But when the ideas come to me, that's the most exciting. That's the most fulfilling part of the entire process. Yeah.
Yeah. Just thinking through what exactly you're going to put down. I can imagine
Yeah.
it's exciting to think about something completely sort of like not brand new per se, but like from your own perspective, a different view, and the process of wanting to get down on paper and then just knowing that
Yeah.
okay, this is something I can create. I love
Mhm.
that. So even while we're on that topic, let's go to the poems themselves. How do you decide when a poem for you is complete? Do you have a process where you're like, okay, it must have 6, 7 lines, it must look a certain way? Like, what makes you feel like, okay, this poem is good to go. This is a complete poem.
It's more intuitive than any other thing.
Okay.
I don't think there's any structure. I've never had any sort of structure to writing. I write how I feel, and when it feels complete, it just feels complete. So I'm so I don't need to disappoint. Like there's no structure that I have to have maybe 3 verses or a verse. Each verse has to have like 6 lines or something.
Yeah.
No. There isn't any sort of structure like that. I mean, if you go through, or when you go through the poems again, you begin to notice that there's no real structure. There might be a rhyming scheme for each poem or something of the sort, but no, there's no structure. It's just
No
intuitive.
structure. It's just a feeling of like, you know what, this captures what I'm trying to say. I feel like people
Yeah,
will get this. Okay.
yeah.
I like that. I like that. So writers out there, to go with the flow. Go with
Mhm,
what you feel
exactly.
is right. Okay,
Yeah.
so there are lots of poems in this book. It's about 100 pages thereabouts, split across 5 chapters. So this question, even as I'm asking it, I can imagine that like it will take a minute. But is there one of the poems that you would say was your favorite? Like when you were done, you felt some sort of release, like, I really love this one that I've written. Or even maybe like a chapter that you felt like I really love this one.
Okay, so for chapters, let me start with chapters.
Okay.
For chapters, for chapters, I feel like Lady Infatuated is me. That is That is exactly who I am. I
Okay.
mean, the other parts, that's Saturday Woman, Girl in Blue, Last Lost in the Maze, and Broken City. Those are those are phases. Those have been phases of my life. Like I've
Mm.
been this person at one point or the other.
The other.
So they are very close, right? But Lady Infatuated is a constant. That's the person that I've always been, even while going through all these other phases,
Mm.
right? I've always been this particular person. So I would say that chapter would be my favorite chapter.
Okay.
Then for poems, I have a lot of favorites in the book.
Exactly. I know it to be hard to pinpoint just one.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. There's so many. But I think I would go with V fourth because that's the V raised to the power four. Um, because it's not like anything I've ever written, or at least at the time, it wasn't like anything I'd ever written. It's written in form of a prose, and I would usually go with shorter poems, simpler rhyming schemes, right? Not so robust context or narratives. But V fourth was very different. It was almost challenging to
Okay.
write, but because I understood what I needed to say or what I wanted to say, it made the process a bit easier. Yeah.
Okay. I like that. I think sometimes it's easier to get your point across when you have an idea. Like even if you know, okay, you're not quite sure how you're going to put it into words, you know the feeling you're trying to put out there, and so
Yeah.
eventually it just all comes together. It makes sense that that would be that would be your favorite. It's always the most challenging things that we end up loving the most because it's like you put so much effort into it. Okay.
Yeah.
So how would you say, like now that the book is complete, how would you say it has affected you personally and creatively? Do you think by writing this book, it opens up like a chapter to you that you feel like you can write in a completely different direction? Like has this book changed you in any way?
Creatively, I would say somehow now I'm able to attach each poem to a separate art form. So there are points where I like all the poems have songs attached to them, right? They have
Yeah.
supplementary songs, yeah. But at the same time, I can see paintings. I can like if I could paint,
Mm.
probably each poem has its
A
own painting,
painting.
right? Yeah, so
Okay.
I
That
can
would be a
see
very fun
painting.
book.
Yeah, so I can see paintings, sometimes other literary texts, so like other books that I feel would, or that I feel align well with one particular poem or the other, sometimes movies, right? So
Mm.
creatively, I feel like it has expanded my mind in that sense to the extent where I can attach several other art forms to each poem or to the collection itself. And then personally, I feel like because I didn't write it in a way where I was trying to be exact.
Okay.
Many of the poems are very big, right? They are very open to
Interpretation.
interpretation. So
Yeah.
yeah, so so the whole process made me remove myself from many of the situations that I was writing about, be it realistic situations or fictional situations, where I had to take myself out of the situation and then look at it from like an observer point of view, like a third party looking in.
Mm.
So it made it more objective, and it made my point of view of many other things more objective than subjective. So you're able to see things from multiple points of view. You're able to appreciate other people's points of views or how other people may feel.
Mm.
Like 2010,
Yeah.
the poem 2010. Yeah, that's written. That's not written. That's supposed to be written by a man in quotes, right? Talking about a woman.
Mm.
And I had to remove myself from that situation and then try to think about how this person would view someone that they loved or someone that they were in love with, however the case may be,
Yeah.
and then just write from that point of view. Yeah.
That makes sense. So there were cases where you had to sort of just completely withdraw yourself from the situation
Yeah.
and just see it from like a different perspective so you could get the point
Yeah.
across. Would you say there
Yeah.
were any like this question I want it from both like a personal view and also like professional. So saying that you had to remove yourself some of the time to write the poem from a different perspective, would you say you drew inspiration from other poets or writers or people in your life that helped you see things like the man, for example? Was there anyone particular that you were like, okay, how does he speak about women that he's interested in? Things like that.
Okay. I wouldn't say so. No, not necessarily. In some cases, I probably sought advice from people in the sense
Mm.
that do you think someone with this particular characteristics or with this particular character traits would speak like this? Do you think they would think
Mm.
like this? In some cases, I felt like they thought or they behaved like those people that I was writing about or I was referring to.
Mm.
So it was easy to ask them that, okay, do you think this person would behave like this or think like this or talk like this? And then that advice was then implemented into some of the work that
Yeah.
came out in the collection, right? But no, I don't think there was any point in time where I took one particular person and then wrote about them like entirely, right?
Mm.
In some cases, like a mix of different people, different experiences, different things that different people that I've encountered at different points in my life, and then I just put them together and then wrote about them. Yeah.
Just put everything there by creating a whole brand new person,
Yeah,
essentially. Like,
exactly.
because you're taking different parts of people. The book is like your little Frankenstein in a way, because you're joining all these pieces together.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I love that. I feel like that even answers two of my questions in one. So, I think the next one I want to move to is how did you feel after publishing the book? In fact, I even want to ask what was the publishing process like for you before we get to like the end of it, the entirety of the process? Like, how did you go about it? What did you feel like during it? And then how did you feel when you were saying like, okay, this book is ready for the public eye?
Okay, so of course, there's the traditional publishing process and then there's the self-publishing process. So at first, I wanted to go the traditional route, but then after considering many other factors, I decided that the self-publishing route would probably work better for me for what I was trying to achieve. I wanted to have complete control of the creative direction of many things in the process, the editing process, and all that. I wanted to have complete or at least 90% control of what was going to happen, which isn't necessarily the case when you go to a publisher and then you're asking them to publish this book for you on the however the case may be,
Yeah.
right? So it was quite simple, really. It wasn't stressful at all because the self-publishing process isn't that difficult. It depends on the platform or the service that you decide to use. So once I decided that I was going to use Seller, it made everything a whole lot easier. There was no hassle. Yeah, Seller is quite it's quite accessible and it's quite easy to use. It's not difficult at all. The whole process isn't strenuous.
Yeah.
They don't waste your time. All you need to do is get the material on the platform and then it's up in seconds, right? Yeah, so it wasn't difficult at all. And then shout out to Sarah. So yeah, that's what I would say about that. And the second question, can you go over that again?
Okay, I was saying what the writing process was like and how you felt afterwards. Like once you had decided the medium you wanted to use, the publishing process, how did you feel after it was done?
Okay, yes, it was a great sense of relief.
Okay.
It was more relief. It was more relief than accomplishment in the sense that I've been working on this collection for a really long time. It's been a long time coming. It wasn't something that I read over the past year or something like that. There are many works that were taken from probably 5-6 years ago and then made the cuts into the collection and many others that did not, based on several other factors that came into play. So it was relieving in the sense that I felt like I hadn't missed the window. Right. There's sometimes when you do something and then it's anticlimactic because you feel like if you had done it earlier, probably it would have felt better or it would have worked out better or it would have, performed better in a sense. Yeah. And this was nothing like that at all. It felt like the time that I put it out was the best time. It was the right time. It was perfect. It was more relieving than any kind of, serious accomplishment or something like that.
Yeah. You were just like, oh, thank God it's done. Checklist.
Yeah.
This is like, I've done this. Okay. Actually, I would like to know what phase in your life were you during the writing process? Because the book covers a lot actually in terms of like relationships, friendships, and identity. And how would you say what stage were you at while writing the book? Do you think you yourself were using the book as a healing medium in any way, or was it just like life things you had seen while processing the book that made the different chapters come along?
Okay, so the different chapters came or were formed, the different themes were formed because I realized at some point that some poems just fit into one theme better than the other. It wasn't necessarily about the point in time where I wrote them or the point in time where the idea came to me. So there are some of them that were written this year and there are some of them that were written probably 4 years ago. And they made it into the same, the same chapter. They made it into the same theme because they're on theme, they're on brand for that particular theme. And it was easy to understand that, okay, from this point to the other points, this is what has changed, right? So there's some, like Lady Infatuated, you see the way it starts and then the way it ends, right? So the way it starts is you have the way it ends, you have the poem forward, right? So that's telling you that, okay, from here, this is what I'm going to do. Like there's a lot that has changed compared to the point in time where it started, where you have drink up, because that's telling you that, okay, I've been hurt a lot. I've hurt a lot of people, but I'm saying cheers to those people and cheers to those experiences because there's still much to be learned. And then you go through the entire chapter. It's learning experience after learning experience up until the end where you meet forward and it tells you that this, like, I'm done learning, or this is, I'm going into a brand new phase. This is the end of this particular phase in that sense. So no, I wouldn't say that they were chosen specifically in that order. They were curated more so to fit into those particular themes. But yes, they did feel like healing. They felt like healing, healing chapters or healing materials at the time that they were being written. Okay. So reading them over again, because there are some times where you experience something more than once, and then you go back to that. You go back to that material, and you realize that, okay, yes, this is still relevant to me in this particular context or in this particular situation. So yeah, they are very healing, and I still read them in that capacity. Yeah.
In that capacity, I love that, because I think that's the beautiful thing about writing in a sense, is that once it's there forever. So even anyone can always pick it up and just sort of like relate to that same sense, like time and time again. That's the beauty of it in all. It's really nice. I wanted to ask, what do you think before I even get to that, I need to know, how did the cover come about? Because the cover is like a purpley type of vibe, and I just got, when I saw the cover, it gives this sense, along with the name, so rotten sense of like finding something. I don't know. The cover just has that sense of like drawing you in, and the name is very unique as well. So how did the cover design come about? Was that something you already had an idea of, like this is how I want the cover to look, or was it an idea that came from someone else?
Oh no, so the cover was I just had an idea of the colors that I wanted, and then over time that changed
Okay.
based on based on some kind of feeling that I got from the book. It started out as green. Interesting. It started out as green and some kind of gold, yeah. But then it didn't feel very green and gold after a while. It felt more blue because blue speaks about sadness, the ocean, so like drowning, being drawn into something, and it didn't feel green connotes freshness, new growth,
Yeah,
new
life.
action, yeah, life,
Exactly.
and it did not feel like that. It felt like you were trying to draw, or I was trying to draw people in,
Mm.
and then help them see into this sort of facade or see behind some sort of curtain, right? And then green just didn't communicate that the way I wanted it to be communicated. So the colors were then changed to blue and light blue and white. Now the pink drawing on the front is that's kudos to my designer. Her name is Chantel. So I just told her that this was the idea I was going for. I wanted people to understand that there's a facade or there's some sort of mask that someone is wearing and then they're about to take it off. And she came up with that drawing that looks like, there are two hands taking off a mask from someone's face.
Yeah.
And immediately I saw it, I fell in love with it. There was no need for any corrections or change this or change that. It was perfect from the moment I saw it. I liked the way there were many other, it was very edgy,
Yeah.
right? It was very
Yeah,
edgy.
it is.
So I loved it, and that was how the cover changed
Came about.
to what it is now. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the cover a lot because it just goes so well with the themes of the book. I think like sort of a finding sort of thing. It's very easy
Yeah.
to see that cover and have sort of an idea of what you're going into. And
Yeah.
I also love how the poems sort of jump from, there are some that really, should I say, sort of sad, and then there are some that are kind of self-finding. So the one I really like, I can't remember everything like offhand. You have to forgive my memory, but I know it says something like, I found my happy remedy. I found what makes me me. And I really love that one so much. I think I even made it a post because it's like, even with everything going on, with the hardship in relationships and all that, there's still that sense of finding yourself and finding what makes you like a happy person. And then the one with the milkshake, the chocolate milkshake.
Yeah.
Initially when I saw the chocolate in the title, I was thinking, okay, what are we going,
Mhm.
what are we going to? And then it started out with like, okay, so milk, some stuff, and then here you go, procrastination, here you go.
Yeah.
So I really like that. I want to talk about that poem specifically. Like, tell me about it, how it came about. Was it something you had written prior, or was this a new one that came with the book?
Okay, no, chocolate milkshake was written sometime in 2020, I think during the lockdown.
Okay.
I had this really profound sense of self-discovery during
Mm.
those 7 months. I feel like those 7 months really changed my life in many ways.
Yeah.
And and in that moment, there was a prompt I saw, or maybe a tweet or something like that. I saw where someone said, "What do you think makes you as a person? Like if you were to give someone the ingredients to create you, what ingredients would you give them?" And so I thought about, the Powerpuff Girls theme where they
Sugar
they have
spice,
the sugar
everything
spice,
nice.
everything nice, exactly. Yeah, so then I started thinking, and I didn't feel like sugar spice and everything nice.
Mm.
So I was wondering, or it made me wonder, what exactly would be put into a cauldron if someone were to pour in some sort of things and then do some kind of incantation, and then they wanted they wanted
No,
the
incantation.
magic to conjure they wanted the magic to conjure me, right?
Mm.
What exactly would be put into that cauldron? And that was exactly what brought that poem about. So of course the procrastination, the loyalty,
Yeah.
the sweetness, empathy, patience. I'm not a very patient person, and I think that's where you see the 1 teaspoon of patience because
Yeah.
I don't really have that. And then there's some other things that they are provided or they are available in abundance, like determination. I think it's the care of
Yeah.
determination that's there. So yeah, that was that was how that came.
I really love that. I think that's even such a beautiful question to ask because it helps you really come in line with who you are as a person. When people ask, okay, someone was to make you, if someone was to say, okay, they want to make a brand new Efe, what do they need to put inside? Because then you really need to think about, who am I? What makes me? What do I want to be even? And it's beautiful
Yeah.
that you were able to like draw that up in a sense. Like you put all these things to say, okay, yes, I do procrastinate, but I'm also very determined. I also have all these things. It shows the makeup of human beings as a whole. Like we're not just one thing. We can't
One
be fit
thing, yeah.
into exactly. We can't be fit into just one bracket of, okay, she's bad, he's bad, she's good. Everybody is so many things at the same time. That was what I
Yeah.
took from that. I know
It's
that
great.
was what I took from that. I really liked it. So what would you say, because there are a lot of poems in this book, so you can give more than one answer to this, but what
Yeah.
would you say when someone picks up the book and they're done reading it, what would you say the message you're trying to get across is to everyone who might get a copy of this book?
Okay. So because they're written very vague and you're allowed to give
Yeah.
context to each poem that you read, I would want people to take away the idea of subjectivity, right? So
Mm.
take these materials and then project your meanings onto them. I'm not trying to convey one message. I'm not trying to tell people this is exactly what I was thinking when I was writing it. My
Mm-hmm.
desire would be for people to read it and then be able to relate to it on their personal levels, be able to project their life experiences, project their day-to-day conversations onto the poems in the book, and then find them relatable, make them have meaning in and of themselves to that person in particular. So I'm not
Mm.
even thinking that two people would take the exact
Same thing.
meaning, the exact same meaning away from each poem, right? So each poem should definitely mean something different to each person. So that subjectivity, yes, that's what I would want each person to take away.
I love that. I love that. You want everyone to just sort of read it and relate to it at their own pace.
Yeah.
So, whatever you like, take what you need from this and use it the way you feel fit to use it.
Mm. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So, before we get into our exciting announcements, we have a very exciting announcement. So, before we get to our exciting announcement, I also want to get your advice for writers that are watching this right now. There are a lot of people who also want to be able to do what you've done, which is like amazing, by the way, to be able to bring all that to life. You deserve all your flowers. So, what advice do you have for people that are just starting, or people who may have written but still might need to hear something? What would you say to them?
Well, I would say that there's no two ways about it, really.
Mm-hmm.
To get better at writing, you have to write. So you write through the pain, through the anger, the happiness, the whatever it is that you're feeling. The
Yeah.
writer's block. Write about the writer's block. Write about everything. Write about everything
Just
you
find me somewhere written down.
write about everything you can think about, and of course
Don't teach
read.
us.
Of course read. Research. So there are many poems that, okay, for example, V Fourth, Onigede, and let me see, I Declare. I didn't just write them without any sort of research in a sense.
Mm.
I Declare was written in Shakespearean English initially before it was converted to more modern English in the way it's published in the book.
I would
Onigede
like
was written,
to see the Shakespearean version.
of course, Onigede was written in Jamaican patois before then being converted to Nigerian pidgin. And then, of course, a lot of research had to go into the Latin phrase that was used in V4. So that's the Vivo, Viver, Vixi, Victum. I needed to understand that. I needed to make sure that the message I was trying to convey was clear in that phrase. And I wasn't saying something wrong. So there was a lot of research. There was a lot of, studying that went into writing those three particular poems. They were probably more or the most challenging in the entire collection to write. So I would say you would also have to read. You have to do a lot of research to make sure that what you're saying is correct, or what you're saying is being communicated in a way that you want it to be communicated, especially if you're going to be borrowing languages the way I did, things like that. Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. Like a lot of research, like first things first, make sure you actually write it down, like what you plan to put out there. Don't just be like, oh, I'm going to write it and then you're thinking out about it. Just put it down somewhere and then do like as much research as you can, like along the way till
Yeah.
you reach the place where you can say, I'm satisfied with this. Right.
Yes.
I love that. So one more thing before because it literally just came to my mind. So I noticed the book right now is in a soft copy version, and some of us, like me as well, we love ourselves a good hard copy. So
Yeah.
are there going to be future hard copies put in place if people want some? Like, would they be able to get that as well?
Yeah, you can pre-order that right now, and then it'll be out in the new year. So the regular seller code for the e-copy is seller.co/SSRS24. However, for the hard copy, it's seller.co/SSRS4me. So that's the number 4 and then ME. And here you can pre-order that. You'll get it in January.
Okay. So our final announcement. Thank you so much. Like we've really been able to have like an insightful conversation and really just address your entire journey from the ideation process all the way down to when you had published the book and you felt relieved that it was out there. So we have something great, and I will be making a post about this later. Yes.
Yeah.
For all of us that are here right now, Efe is going to be giving one lucky person a free copy of Soft Sports Rotten Sports. And in order to participate in this giveaway, you're going to have to do a couple of things, like follow our accounts, post it on your story. There's going to be so many more details about this. If you want to drop anything real quick.
I want to say thank you to everyone who came to watch, and I want to say thank you, Wani, for having me on your live. It's been such a wonderful session. I enjoyed myself thoroughly, and I look forward to future sessions. Hopefully, my next collection comes really quick, and then we can have another one of this sometime next year. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm actually looking forward to that. Okay. Thank you so much, Efe. Thank you to everyone who joined. Be on the lookout for our giveaway post. All right. Bye, everyone.